I have a question about comedians, and I have a
Hmm.
question about about the relationship that I find very fascinating. My one of my really close friends for a long time worked at NBC, and it was a part of their diversity initiative to look for different comedians. And I would oftentimes go with her to the Comedy Store here in LA, where I live,
Yeah.
and I would see these comedians, these up and coming comedians, and they would go on stage, and I didn't, I didn't know the world, but when I see them years later, because it takes 20 years to be the new hot thing, right? You're
Right.
busting your balls for 10 years, and then all of a sudden you pop, and they're like, you just popped on the scene. You're like, no,
Right.
I've been here.
Yeah.
So it was before Kevin Hart was Kevin Hart.
Hmm.
It was before, and may he rest in peace, David Arnold was really known to a lot
Hmm.
of people. And I was always so fascinated in what was the recipe for in terms of when is it your time to pop as a comedian? I'm always fascinated by that. Is it just time and opportunity?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of variables, right? Um, because the time to pop, when you're naming three or four comedians out of the actual literal
So many.
thousands that are available to pick from, even when you rise to the level of being, a known entity, headlining clubs, traveling, maybe making a few television appearances, like that's a really incredible plateau to reach where you're actually, you have a vibrant, alive career as a stand-up comedian. That's your job. And if you don't do anything else, if you don't get a sitcom, if you don't get in a movie, you'll still have a career, you still have a life. So that's like the baseline of successful comedian, right? And I think David Arnold's is a fantastic example of that. He never necessarily, broke through in the biggest way, but he had some really, great successes. He had a couple of specials. I know he created a show, but his visibility and his name brand as a comedian, wasn't as big as, of course, as a David
Sure.
or a Kevin. But he's got a great life and very successful. So that's one level of it. And in a manner of speaking, even with that level of success, he didn't pop,
Correct,
right?
correct. So
That
it's
never happened, right?
you're
But on the
right.
flip side, you have a Gerard Carmichael, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who is kind of a young phenom, and so the pop happens early, right? Oh, there's a guy that's not doing what the other guys are doing in the way that they're doing it. So then it's kind of like all eyes on this sort of unique figure, and to the extent that he had that moment where he pops through and bursts into the vernacular and the conversation about stand up and art and creativity. He continued on in a way that continued to explore that creativity. What he just did with Rathaniel was amazing. And
Mm-hmm.
that's after, like almost 10 years of working in the public eye and then getting to a point where, now I'm actually doing something that's going to have a great impact because, it's award winning and it's attacking his
Sure.
material in a way. And, just one more. I just directed Lorel's HBO special,
Oh,
which is about to air.
congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you. And even Rel, like
Mm-hmm.
Rel's, he's a recurring figure in a bunch of great movies. We've seen him. He keeps popping up all over the place. He's had two specials. He's been on a number of series. He's had his own series. He was on the
Yeah.
Carmichaels, and Rel still hasn't popped.
What does that mean? I said it, but what does pop mean?
It's the Chris Rock moment that happens when he does Bring the Pain, right? When Chris does Bring the Pain, he's been, he's been on a number of shows. He's been in the public eye. He's been in some movies. He's done some things. But as a stand up on that stage, in that moment, he comes up with a piece that like takes the audience by storm, right? And we also weren't inundated with quite as many comedians and quite as many outlets for comedy at the time. So when you got everybody's attention, just like the level that you're working on, is a higher level. But it's not until Bring the Pain that that he does a routine, which was the niggas and black people routine, which
Yeah.
just like poof, everybody's head goes like this. After that,
Yes.
in my
Yes.
metric, after that, Chris Rock becomes a star. But at
I
this point,
don't
he's been in New Jack City. He's been in Beverly
He's been
Hills
in
Cop.
movies. He's
Yes, he's been in
working.
movies.
He's
He's been on
known.
TV. He's working. He's done all
Yeah.
this stuff.
Yeah.
But he's not
Yeah.
Chris Rock yet.
Okay, so even taking that even out of the comedy realm, what I do, how does who pops? How does Stephen A become the biggest name in sports? How does Oprah become Oprah? Like, and
Right.
I'm just saying that in theory because you've been working significantly for so
Yeah.
long is what I'm getting as you're illustrating this to me, and I'm like, no, you're right. I Tony
Well,
Rock for that matter, right? Or or
right.
or Guy Tori who had you
Right.
have a moment and then okay, I'm still known, I'm still working, that's my full-time
Right.
job. But what then catapults you? Is it just destiny? Is it meant to be? How would
No,
you describe the differences?
it's you're talking about a moment in time, right? Uh, Certain performers meet these unique moments in time when what they're doing and how they're doing it meets this moment when what they're doing is just really refreshing, in the space that it lands. And it's also situated so that the most people can access it at the same time, right? It's galvanizing. There are galvanizing moments. There was a woman who got really popular during the pandemic, Sarah Cooper, a comedian, and
Oh, I remember
she
she
was
was
doing the
doing the
Trump lip
president.
syncing, right?
Yes,
She was
yes,
lip
yes.
syncing truck. So it's like, oh, okay, there's this incredible moment where this woman has a particular skill, right?
Uh-huh.
She has particular access to technology. Everybody's in the house, right? And so, suddenly, boom, all eyes make it, oh, we can all look at her at the same time. And then Sarah Cooper gets a career. And we have yet to see, how that plays out and what other things she's going to do. I'm sure she's going to do some amazing things. But the pop moment where I got everybody's attention, you can't take that back. So Genie's out of the bottle. I know exactly who she is, and even if I don't know her name, I know exactly what she did. And so I'm like, oh,
Correct.
the lip sync Trump girl. Yeah, 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 I know her.
Correct.
And
Correct.
fame has everything to do with reach, right? I don't know necessarily what you do, or haven't necessarily seen you do it, but I know who you are.
Mm. Mm.
if
But
if
then
Rel yeah, if Rel had a moment that's close to popping is in Get Out when he plays Rod the brother. And he's got this amazing moment at the end of the film. Not He's funny during the film,
entire
but he's
film.
got an amazing moment at the end of the film that Rel is stapled into black iconography forever for having this moment in the film. We know exactly who that is.
What do you do when you have that moment? How what I'm asking is when Chris Rock in your metric has his moment and Bring the Pain, how does he transition and hold on to that and take it to the next level? Dave Chappelle's moment would be arguably when he had his Comedy Central show, right? The Dave
Hmm.
Chappelle show, right?
Hmm.
And and Star to me, bona fide, disappears,
Right.
comes back, gets even bigger, right?
Yes.
How does
Right.
that happen? How in your opinion as a comedian, and I'm not referring to any other
Hmm.
occupation,
Right.
you're able to take these moments and amplify?
Well, two things. One, you keep doing what you've been doing, which is exercise and working on your craft in the way that because that's how you got to the place where you are. But the other thing that occurs is that you garner more trust.
Mm,
So suddenly the ideas that you might have as a comedian in terms of how to scale your career, whether it's film or television or whatever other avenues you might go into, um, that's based on the type of ideas you have, right? So if you have good ideas, but what was problematic before is that you couldn't necessarily get support for them because they may have been unique or outside the box. When you prove yourself on one stage, then you get the opportunity to start slowly pushing and expanding into other arenas. That's the Donald Glover story. Right, so Donald Glover
Mm.
has done sketches on YouTube. He's done music, but he came about in a slightly different era because advances in technology allowed him to step into the space without the ask, so to speak. He could put sketches up on YouTube without calling YouTube and asking them, "Is it okay? Will you support this?" It's like, no, just put it up there, whatever you got, And if you get eyeballs, you get eyeballs, But that's not our problem. That's up to you. But he got eyeballs because he's
Correct.
talented. And he's a
Correct.
great comic actor, but he's also a great comedian. And oh shit, he's a great musician. Oh wait a minute, he can act, he can write, he can do all of these things. And so he was always capable of that. But the
I
trust and the support don't always come until you make an impact that makes somebody think, well, maybe we should follow that guy.